Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video we're going to be doing something a little different. A tier list ranking all the different provinces and municipalities of China from the best to travel to, with the S, down to F, the worst. And I want to say that I know it's been a couple weeks since I put out my last video, but starting today I'm going to be making up for that because we're going to be having a lot more videos coming up this month than we normally would. So I hope you're looking forward to all of these. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into this tier list. So first off, what I want to do is take Taiwan right here and put it in the not part of China tier. Taiwan is not a part of China. Those of you who think it is are probably someone from China and you shouldn't be able to watch this video anyways. But it's really not a part of the People's Republic of China. It never has been. It's been its own country since China had its civil war, and it's never been controlled by the Communist Party. So Taiwan is its own country. It is not a part of China. Let's just make that clear. And now for the next part, what I want to do is go ahead and fill out all the different provinces that I've never traveled to. So let's look through the list here. Okay, so first here we have Gansu. Never been there. I've always wanted to go to Lanzhou and also see the mountains with all the different rainbow colors northwest of there. Let's see, what else do we have here in this list? Let's go over to Hainan. Never been to Hainan. Hainan is the province that's the southernmost province in China. For those who don't know, it's an island province, kind of like China's version of Hawaii. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know why anyone would travel there, because all that exists there is nothing deeply historical. So I never had a reason to go there, and it's probably going to stay that way in the never traveled list. And if I did go there, I have a feeling it would be either in the D or the F tier. Okay, next is Heilongjiang. This is the far most northern province of China, and Heilongjiang is probably where I would want to go during the winter to go see the Ice Sculpture Festival. Maybe some of you have seen what that looks like online, but in the far north in Heilongjiang, there's the city of Harbin, and this is where people will go every January, I think, to go and see the Ice Festival. There are lots of sculptures. They even make hotels out of ice, and if you get the chance, you should probably go there if you can. Unfortunately, I have no idea where I would place it in the tier list because I haven't been there. I only know that there's that one event, and aside from that, I'm not entirely certain what exactly has been there historically, or what remains from history there, ruin-wise. Next, let's go ahead and look at the next place I have not been to, which is Jiangxi Province. Jiangxi Province is kind of near the south-central part of mainland China, and if I had to put a location on it, it's, I believe, between Hunan and Zhejiang Province. So between the one that has Shanghai and Hangzhou, all that to the east, and then you look to the west and you have Changsha. And if you go to this place, I don't entirely know what is there. So I have to say that I don't think that Jiangxi has a lot of interest, but then again, I wouldn't know because I haven't been there. Jilin, this is another one of the northeasternmost provinces of China, and historically this was always a part of the Manchuria area, but I honestly have no idea what there is to see here. I'd have to look it up more. Same thing goes for Liaoning. So Liaoning province, this is right next to Jilin and Heilongjiang, and in this northeastern part of China, the one thing that they have of interest that I saw, at least, was they have the port of Dandong, I believe in Liaoning, and also up there is this massive castle-like hotel that is really on a scale that you won't see anywhere else. Maybe one day I'll go there, but I don't see a reason to go there if there's nothing else to see there. Alright, next in the list is Ningxia. So, Ningxia is a very small province in the western northern part of China, and this one is known as one of the Muslim autonomous regions. It's very small, and most of the things that were there historically during the Xixia, I think the Western Xia dynasty, that's where their capital was back in history, but as far as I'm aware, most of the historical sites and relics have all been moved or destroyed, so I don't think there's actually too much to see there, but again, I could be wrong. Alright, so now next on the tier list, let's go ahead and pick up with this one. I wish the letters were smaller so I could actually read what these are, but This one I can tell by looking at it, it's Qinghai. And so Qinghai province is one of the 2 Tibetan Plateau provinces, and Qinghai is famous for a very large lake that it has, but aside from the lake, as far as I'm aware, not much to see there. So if you just want to see large expanses of nature, that's probably a good place to go, but I don't think you're going to be seeing many forests there. It's mostly going to be grasslands. Alright, and next we have Shandong province. So Shandong province, surprisingly, is one I haven't been to, because this is where you have Qingdao and many other sites from history that have really been important, such as Confucius's hometown. You have some mountainous temples that are very famous. In fact, some of the most famous around China are there. So Shandong is probably a place that's really worth going to. I just unfortunately haven't been able to go there yet. Alright, next is Shanxi. This is not to be confused with Shanxi. There's Shanxi and Shanxi, and if you can't hear the difference between the two, then you're probably not going to be able to do very well if you try to learn Chinese. But Shanxi is the province to the west of Hebei, which in the middle has Beijing, and in Shanxi province they have the Datong Caves, the Buddhist caves, which are very worth seeing if you don't go to the ones in Luoyang like we went to, the Longmen Grottos in our trip around China. They also have the Hanging Cliffside Temple. That's something that probably a lot of you have seen if you've ever seen videos on China. But there are many other sites to see, like the historical city of Pingyao, and probably a place that would be worth going to overall if you are deciding on somewhere to go to. Unfortunately, I just haven't been able to go there yet. Next, Tianjin. I lived in Beijing for 2 years, and somehow I managed to avoid ever going to Tianjin, and I think that's probably because even though it's right next to the city of Beijing, to the east of it, kind of southeast, there's nothing historically of value there for me, or culturally. I mean, most of it's just modern and a support city. I supposedly heard that this was the original city of Jianbing, which is one of my favorite foods to eat whenever I'm in China, but I don't know if that alone makes it worth traveling to. Next, Tibet. Tibet is a little bit different from a lot of other places around China because, once again, it's an autonomous region, which means that it has a minority population that is very large. In fact, it might even be the majority. And one thing that they do have in Tibet is the Lhasa Palace, of course, or Potala Palace, and you can always go to the Himalayas. But as far as I'm aware, you also have to deal with a whole lot of surveillance from the government because, again, this is a very sensitive area to go to. And right now, with all the horrible things that are going on to the Tibetan population, I don't think that it's probably a good thing to go there right now. Alright, so next in the list, as I'm speaking about bad things that are happening around China in places like Tibet, is Xinjiang, because this one is, of course, where you have the Muslim concentration camps. And here, although you have some beautiful scenery, there's a lot of culture that would be fantastic to go see, it's not the easiest place for foreigners to be able to go to, because if you try to go anywhere, they will probably check any of your footage you try to take while you're there, just to make sure you're not getting word out about things that are going on there that go against the government's view. So, Xinjiang would be fantastic again to go to, but unfortunately, not able to go there yet. Okay, what else do we have here? I think that is every single one of the places I have never been to. So, now we're going to be able to actually get on to the real tier list. I know that's a lot of places that I've never been to in China, but, you know, some I can already tell you probably not worth going to, and others would love to go to, but unfortunately haven't been able to for a variety of reasons. So first on the list, Anhui. Anhui province. If I was to rank Anhui, I would probably put this at about, let's go with a C or D. I'll start with a C. Now, Anhui, after going through it on train mostly, it was primarily just fields, farmland, and some cities without much to see at all. Of course, the most famous thing that anyone would want to go to Anhui to see is the Huangshan, or the yellow mountains in the southern part of the province that are famous, that they used for a variety of movies and for a lot of videos and art that you'll see on China. And Anhui, for that reason, I think it might be worth going to. But if you don't want to go see scenery, there's not a lot to see there historically. Do I want to keep it in C? Probably, because I would still at least consider it worth going to just to see those mountains. But until I've been there, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it really is worth it. Alright, so next on the list, we have Beijing. Beijing is getting a solid A. I spent 2 years of my life there, 1 year in high school, 1 year in university, and I can tell you there is a ton to do there, ton to see there, historically, culturally. If you love food, pretty much every kind that you'll want from around China is in Beijing. And there honestly is so much to do there that you could be there for months and still not see everything. So Beijing, definitely worth going to. Highly recommend it. Okay, so for the next area, what we have is Chongqing. I thought this was Hong Kong for a second, but actually it turns out that this is Chongqing. And Chongqing, I would put it at probably a B, because if it's your first time going to China, there's basically all the touristy things in this city that you could want to see. As far as a major city in China is concerned, you have a few things that are historical, such as the Hongyadong cave system, which is a lot of buildings stacked on each other. It's very touristy, and if it's your first time in China, it might be worth going to seeing, but for us, when we went traveling around China, it felt like it was lacking a lot of originality compared to other touristy areas. So actually, you know what? I'm going to put it at C. Is it worth going to? Yes. Does it have something that's unique compared to other places? Probably not. But if you're only going to be in China for a little bit, you want a brief taste of China, it might be worth going here just to see it. So that gets a C, it passes. Next on the list, Fujian Province. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in a B. Now, originally, I probably would have thought I would put it in a C based off of my personal experience when I got sick there the very first time I went there. But Fujian Province has many interesting things, such as in Xiamen, you have the Gulongyu Island, and it's on that island where you have basically this area where the Europeans, I think it was either the Portuguese or Spanish, I can't quite remember because it's been at least over a decade since I was there. And there's also, as you go inland into the province, there's the Tulos, or famous earthen ringed buildings, that if you saw the new Mulan movie, maybe you've gotten a little more familiar with that. Or if you've seen the animated film Big Fish in Begonia, or Dayu Haitang, this is where you would see this kind of building highlighted more prominently. There's other places that might be worth seeing, so I'll go ahead and put this one in a B tier. Alright, next up we have Guangdong Province. Guangdong, again, I'm going to put this in B. Now, I'm putting it here because actually the only thing I've done here is gone through it on train. I don't know if that really counts for me being able to say I've been there, but I would say that I have seen that it's very urbanized, and although it doesn't have a lot of history, except in the Canton region, which unfortunately I haven't been to yet, this is a place where there is a lot to do and see, and it's where they primarily speak Cantonese, so Mandarin is not going to be as useful for you there if you're someone who's learning it like I was. And with Hong Kong just across the border, there's going to be an easy time for you to go back and forth between the two areas, and there's really quite a lot to do there in these cities, right around the border with Hong Kong, in areas like Shenzhen. So Guangdong Province, probably a place that you want to go to. Alright, next on the list, Guangxi. Guangxi, oh man, I'm gonna go with the B. So the reason I'm going with the B for Guangxi, it has beautiful scenery. It has places like Guilin, which unfortunately is a lot more polluted than you would think, because all the images you ever see are beautiful, but they always choose the days when there is no pollution to actually go there and shoot things. But whenever I've been there now, it's been very polluted, which makes it so that the scenery doesn't quite move it up into the A tier. You get to see a bit about minorities around China in Guangxi, and I like to see more of the history, which Guangxi province is a little lacking in compared to other provinces. So for that reason, I'm going to put that in the B tier. And then next, A tier, Guizhou. Guizhou province is great. I think that if you get the chance, you should probably go here, but probably again only if you have someone who speaks Mandarin fluently enough that they can help you go see all the different minority groups in the area. There's the Qiandongnan region with cities like Kaili, where you get to see all the different minorities, such as the Miao or Hmong, as they are known in the United States, or one branch thereof. And you also get to see a whole lot of unique towns that are becoming increasingly more touristy, but they're absolutely beautiful and worth seeing, and you get to see how they're preserving culture in China for at least some of the minorities. So for that reason, Guizhou, also for the scenery, is a fantastic place to go. Highly recommend it. Alright, so next on the list we have Hebei province. Hebei I will put in the B region. Now, Hebei, again, is probably worth going to because it has a lot of good historical sites, including the Great Wall. The Great Wall stretches across the northern part of the province, and as you go further south into cities like Shijiazhuang, the capital, you're going to be able to see a few more museums that have a lot of history, and ultimately, I think people will be happy going through this area if you want to see the Great Wall. And I believe in the northeastern part of the province, you also have Chengde. I think Chengde is in Hebei. And Chengde has another version of the Potala Palace from Tibet. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to go to that part of the province, but it's only a few hours out of Beijing to the northeast. And if you get the chance and you can't go to Tibet, I highly recommend you go there. So, Hebei, solid B. After that, we have Henan. Henan gets a B as well. Now, Henan, this place is famous for cities like Luoyang, which is where we had the Longmen Grottos, and there's a lot of things there that are worth seeing too that I didn't get to see on the trip, like the Shaolin Temple and ancient kings' tombs from various dynasties. So Henan has a lot to see there. For those reasons, I'm going to put that in B tier as well. After that, Hong Kong. Okay, maybe I should have gone ahead and placed it here in Never Traveled, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I've been to the airport in Hong Kong. That probably doesn't really count. And I wish I'd actually been into Hong Kong proper because, again, I know it's different from the rest of China, but that's probably going to change increasingly over time as the CCP continues to tighten its grip over the city. And Hong Kong, I know, is a very popular place for food, and it's probably the cleanest place you'll be able to go in China as well. And I'm sure it's nicer than virtually any other city, with perhaps the exception of Beijing. So I really think that Hong Kong will probably be an A-tier place. I hope that it will stay a good place to go to, but we'll see one day in the future if I'm able to go there. Okay, next on the list, Hubei. I'm going to go ahead and place this actually either C or B. Hard to decide if I want it to be C or B. You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and place Hubei actually in B tier. I realized why I should put it in B tier, because if it was just for cities like Wuhan, where I stayed and taught for a year, it would not be worth it by itself. I would actually put it in C tier. Because even though Wuhan has the East Lake, that doesn't alone make it worth going to. Just because it has one good museum with the Hubei Provincial Museum, and seeing the Chu Kingdom artifacts that I really love from over 2,000 years ago, that quite alone doesn't make it worth seeing. But in addition to Wuhan, you have some famous mountain temples, you have some natural scenery in the western part of the province, you have minority villages in the far west as well. This is where you have the Three Gorges Dam. You also have, again, Xiangyang with the movie park, which was one of my favorite experiences in China. So there is quite a bit to do in Hubei, and I would probably recommend that someone goes here, just to at least see some of those things. And now we're moving on to Hunan. Hunan also gets the B tier. Now, this one has the city of Changsha, which, aside from maybe a museum and some food, isn't ultimately worth going to. But in the western parts, you have a lot more of the minority villages, and I believe Fenghuang, the famous phoenix city, is in the western part of this province, in addition to the mountains that you see in the movie Avatar. Zhangjiajie, that's right. Zhangjiajie is the mountainous range here that's featured in the Avatar movies, and this is where you would want to go to see those mountains. We were originally planning on going there during our trip, but because of temperatures and weather, we decided to change to go instead to Jiaoxing to the south and through Guangxi province instead of through Hubei. But aside from that, I would definitely consider Hubei to be a B-tier province. I mean Hunan, not Hubei. Next, we have Inner Mongolia. D-tier. In fact, you know what? I think I might actually put Inner Mongolia in F tier. Do I want to put it there? Okay, maybe not. Maybe I won't put it in F tier. I'll keep it in D tier, because at least it has the grasslands and Mongolian culture going for it. Inner Mongolia is easily the most polluted province that I've ever been to. The sky was constantly gray or brown whenever I went there, except in the far northern parts where the grasslands were, because you're above all the factories and you're able to actually see things. But I'm not a big fan of grasslands. I'm not a big fan of horses, so it's just not my thing. But the cities there, Hohhot, not a great place. Not a lot of historical sites to see here anymore either. And also, if you go to places further west like Baotou, it's some of the most heavily polluted regions in China, and I ultimately wouldn't choose to go back to this province, so that's why it gets the D. But if you're really wanting to see the grasslands of Mongolia, you might actually want to go to Mongolia, the country, instead. But if you're in China and you really want to see it, I guess you can go there, but I wouldn't put it on my list. Alright, and then the next place that we have on the list is Shanxi. And this one, definite A tier. No question. And if I actually had to rank these places in the A tier, I would go Beijing, Shanxi, and Guizhou. And Shanxi, the reason I put Shanxi up so high is because this is where you have the city Xi'an, with, of course, the most famous thing there being the Terracotta Warriors. But there's a lot to do in Xi'an aside from that. You have a whole bunch of museums, historical sites, you have the old city wall surrounding the inner city, and then outside of Xi'an, you still have a lot of different places to see, so Shanxi, definitely worth it. Highly recommend it if you are going to China. Okay, so next on our list, we have Shanghai. Shanghai for a city, I don't know if I would put it quite an A tier. I think it's a good place to go to. It's a good choice if you're going there. You'll be able to try a lot of good foods and see a lot of interesting things like the Bund, where you get to see the old historical buildings from when various people from the West lived in Shanghai during the 1800s. And also you're able to see the night scene across the river, which is quite the view and worth seeing. You have the Yuyuan Gardens, you have Shanghai Disneyland. All of that's good, all of it's worth going to. It's not quite the reason why I go to China though. So I would probably put it in B. Maybe there's just a lot of things that I'm missing. It could probably deserve to be an A tier as well, but I'm going to go ahead and put it at the top of B tier for at least my experience. Now, next, Sichuan Province. Sichuan Province deserves the S tier. Sichuan Province is the greatest province to travel to in China. I've been there every single time that I've been to China. I always feel like I want to go back there. Now, maybe I don't quite feel like I need to go back to Chengdu if I go there again, because I've been there 3 times now, and I feel like I've seen pretty much everything there is to see. Sichuan Province is of course famous for the pandas. You go to Chengdu, the capital there, to see them, or you can go to the west of Chengdu to see the panda reserve, the Wolong Panda Reserve. You also have tons of history there. Some of the best food in China's there. If you like spicy food, this is the place to go. And then to the south, you have Lushan, the giant Buddha, and you have the Ebony Museum, which is great. You have Umeishan, fantastic mountain to see. If you like monkeys, you go there too. And then you also have so many other things that you can do in that province. We stayed in that province alone for at least, I think, 2 weeks, but I could easily stay in this province longer. There's so much to do. I can't recommend Sichuan province enough. Make sure you research it so you know what you're going to go see. Check out every city you can, because there's probably something worth seeing in pretty much every city. And now, also in the S tier, is Yunnan province. Yunnan province is fantastic. It's becoming increasingly touristy, and it was already touristy the last time I went there, but if you want to get a taste of the minorities around China, Yunnan is the province for you, and it also has the greatest variation in environments that any place pretty much in the world that I can think of has within such a small area, from tropics all the way up to the Himalayas. So you get the full range of temperatures. You have Thailand just across the border. You also have in the north the city of Lijiang, which is one of the best tourist cities in China. And if you want to experience minorities and their cultures, you definitely want to go to Kunming and Lijiang and Dali, all these cities in northern Yunnan, because there is so much to do, so much to experience, and I cannot recommend this province enough. So Yunnan, solid S tier. And now, after this, another good place to go in the A tier, Zhejiang province. Now, why would I put Zhejiang province here? Zhejiang has a lot of sites from history, and I would also say that culturally it's one of the best places to go. Food-wise, if you have a sweet tooth or you like salty foods, if you don't like the heavy spice, heavy oil, Zhejiang is a much fresher kind of foodie place, and honestly, it's the birthplace of some of my favorite food in China, so Zhejiang, highly recommend it for food reasons. Also, if you want to go to Hangzhou, that's where this is. And Hangzhou is a very famous city for its West Lake area, and there's lots of historical sites. So again, Zhejiang, at least for Hangzhou alone, would put it at least in the B tier, but with all the other sites that they have around the province, probably deserves the A tier. And then last but not least, we have Jiangsu, and I think I would put it in either B or A tier. I think based off of my experiences alone, I'll put it in B tier for now. But that's because when I was in Nanjing, which is the capital of the province, when I was there, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do much. I know there's a ton to see there. There's lots of museums. There's Sun Yat-sen's mausoleum. There's bunches of temples. There's all kinds of things to do in Nanjing alone. And then when you think of cities that are also in this area that are closer to Shanghai, such as Suzhou, where you have the water towns and all the canals going between the cities, between the different buildings, it has a lot to do here. You know what? I'll put Jiangsu at the end of A tier. I think it deserves it. And so with that, I think we have our completed tier list here. This is where I would rank everything. Is there a place in China that's absolutely not worth going to? That deserves the F tier? I don't know. I would probably say a few of these provinces that I haven't been to, that I chose not to go to because I don't think there would be anything there, might deserve to go in F tier. Maybe Jilin or Liaoning, maybe Jiangxi, or Hainan. But ultimately, I think probably every single province or part of China has something that's worth seeing, and everything from B or higher, I really recommend going to seeing. Of course, I don't really recommend Inner Mongolia. Anhui has its good things, Chongqing has its good things, Hunan, Hubei, Henan, Hebei, Guangxi, Guangdong, Fujian, and Shanghai, all worth going to. Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Guizhou, Shanxi, and Beijing, you should go there. And then Yunnan and Sichuan provinces are places you have to go to if it's your first time going to China. I cannot state that enough. you certainly should go there. And you know what? I'm going to change one thing. Beijing probably should be an S tier. Top 4 places I would recommend if you get the chance to travel to would be these 4 for sure. So, highly recommend that if you go to China, Sichuan is the place you should start. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video on my tier list of all the different places in China that I think you should go to, and my rankings for them. And I hope you stay tuned for the next video when I do another tier list ranking the various cities that I went to on my trip with my father around China. So, I hope to see you next time. Goodbye! Thank you again for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Also, please share this channel with others so we can make the channel grow together as I continue to put out more videos.